many aspects, well, one of the aspects of your God teaching of the ground truth describes thinking this way.
Okay? John? Thank you. On the positive side, it's described as spiritual Christ, Buddha, Krishna, Moses, Muhammad, Mighty I Am Presence, fully realized planetary Christ, God, Godness, thinking. Ooh, that kind of describes it all, doesn't it? It just makes us one with God and you and I. And we compare it to the fear thought, which is described as negative ego, fear-based, separative, dualistic, illusionary, lower self-mind, thinking, feeling. So it gives a more descriptive of what that side is. So, both of those describe our human dualistic way of thinking in this world, and so we ought to discuss more about that. Therefore, Spirit and I are starting a series about thinking on the important aspects of man as taught by New Thought, especially science of mind. So first of all, I'm going to be talking about the mind, and then we'll go to spirit, and then we'll go to soul, and then we'll go to the body. And I know that right now, the mind, we'll talk about that today, and there's probably going to be at least one other series, Sunday series, or maybe even two, to get a lot of information out. So we start with talking about the mind because it's the beginning of understanding. And since we here at New Thought talk about how we change our thoughts, change our life, it's an important topic. It's important that we lay a foundation for all these other topics to come together and find out the whole of man. So to start, let's state this truth. Nothing is more apparent than that man, as he now appears, is the result of evolution. But in order to evolve, he had to have a principle from which to evolve and to unfold. So what is that principle that guides us all? Since man is intelligent, he must have evolved from an intelligent cause. In studying this order of man's evolution, it seems certain that it was necessary from the time that he was brought to a point of self-choice to be left alone to discover his true nature. If man is endowed with the attributes of self-choice and free will, which we all are, he must be allowed to make the great discovery for himself. Consider any of the nature's forces that we have in our society that must have existed always, but as so far as man existed, they exist only to be used after he has discovered it and learned how to make use of them. For instance, electricity was a reality in the universe when Moses led the children out of the land of Israel to the land of Egypt. But neither Moses nor any of his followers knew anything about electricity, even though it was there. This is true of all natural laws in the world. They've always existed because they come from the source, from the beginning. But only when we understand them may we use them. In this way, life waits upon man's discovery of natural laws and spiritual laws, his discovery of himself, his discovery of his relationship to the great whole of the universe. The principle of any science is invisible, theoretical, as is our idea of spirit. No one has seen God, have you? No one has seen life. What we've seen is the manifestation of God and life in our life. No one has seen intelligence, but we experience it. No one has seen causation. We see what it does, and we deal with its effects, or what our thinking does for us. Remember, outside reflects what's inside. The mathematician solves a problem, but solving the problem itself is not the principle of mathematics. The solution of the problem is an effect or a result of the application of that principle that's in mathematics. We do not see life, we experience living. Cause there for our living is invisible. It's in everything and every one of us. So how about the first great discovery of man? The first great discovery that man made was that he could think. And that was the day that he said, I am, which is what God is, what we talk about here. So at some point, we discovered that I am, what am I? This marked the first day of personal attainment. From that day on, man became an individual and had to make further progress himself. From that day, there was no compulsory evolution. he had to work with conscious union with life. The basis from which man is evolving is infinite. There's so much available to all of us. Behind him is the great unknown, but not the great unknowable. This is what we practice here, is knowing and understanding the truth more. As a result of his discovery, man knew that he could think, plan, and execute, and so he built a great civilization. He has perceived that nature works through him in order to work for him. So, what has man done? Harnessed electricity, compelled steam to do his bidding, conquered air, flying through air, built cities, made the desert to bloom, and has thrown his lines of commerce around the globe. Indeed, man has seemed to possess the earth during this process, even though a little bit of attention has been given to that still small voice inside which says, "Man, know thyself." Man's first discovery of his ability to think was taken as a matter of fact. He'd always been able to think. It was proof that he existed. It gave him the ability to know his needs and to supply them in his life. It appeared to be an automatic thing. It came with him, and it would doubtless die when he died. The brain at that time to man seemed to be an origin of thought. And of course, when death stilled the brain would no longer work. However, a day came when some wise man, and this is what New Thought's always about, some new thought that comes in, some wise man claimed that it's not the brain that does the thinking. For if it was the brain, it would keep on thinking when it was removed from the body, the organ that itself. Yet without a brain, a man cannot think, which proved to man that something behind the brain used it as an instrument. Man does not think, so beyond the brain, there must be a thinker. But where is that thinker? We do not see him. Have we a right to say that there is a thinker when we have never seen it? Yes, for the proof of this reality is the evidence of his thought. Back of the organism is the thinker, or the doer, which we call the mind. Any idea what it is? This was the greatest discovery of all time, for it meant that the body without the thinker could not function. At first, man did not perceive this and thought only of his body as self-operating. But when he discovered that was not the case, he found that he could actually consciously think and decide about things in his life, and that something happened to his thought. Since he thought them, they went somewhere. The thoughts go somewhere that we have all day long, but they return to him as a memory. So pondering upon this, man came to the conclusion that memory was an active thing, and he realized after this fashion, and I quote, "Memory must be the storehouse of all ideas that have passed through my mind, for my thoughts come back to me. My thought is conscious of my body, and my body is operated by my thought. And it must be operated upon by my memory, since memory is active in my mind. But since memory is the result of conscious thought, memory of itself is an unconscious operation of what was once a conscious thought." Did you get that? Yeah. Memory is the result of conscious thought, but memory of itself is an unconscious operation of once was a conscious thought. You have a conscious thought. How many times during the day do the thoughts that you have are memories of things that's already happened? Probably a lot, a good majority. Sometimes we think about the future, but for the most time, this is what's happening. It's an unconscious operation that keeps coming back from a conscious thought we had before. This is one of the most important conclusions which the mind of man has ever made. By changing his thoughts, he could remold his affairs. And by right thinking, he could bring new conditions into his life, which we talk about here in New Thought, right? That's tremendous. In the scientific discovery of laws, certain theories are postulated. Such theories may develop through research and investigation, and when a theory proves to be correct after many experiments, then the principle is announced, and it says, this is what it is. In this way, scientific truth is demonstrated, but no one has ever seen any of those principles which science announces. Just as no one has ever seen the great cause, the original source, which lies at the back of all manifestations of life. Again, everything comes from God, from source. As soon as a law is discovered, experiments are made with it by the scientists. Certain facts are proven to be true, and in this way, a science is gradually formulated. Any science consists of the number of known facts about its invisible principle. So, as more and more facts are gathered and proven, the science expands, and it gradually becomes accepted by all people, and may be used by those who understand it. From that understanding, let us then approach the science of mind, which is an aspect of New Thought. And it's about how the mind works and what I've just been telling you. So let's approach it with awe, not with fear, with a humble spirit, but not with any sense that we are unworthy and certainly no superstition. Let us approach it normally, happily, willing to accept this belief of law of man and experiment with it, believing that as a result of our efforts, we shall drive that great good that lies behind us to a better understanding of the natural laws of life as they apply to the individual and his relationship to the scheme of things in the universe. How is man relating to everything that's happening around him? The science of mind, then, that we also practice here is the study of life and the nature of the laws of life and the nature of the laws of thought. How often do we talk about change your mind, change your life? How important the thought is. That's what we're talking about here. The conception that we live in a spiritual universe, then, is God lives within us, through us, around us, and for us. There is nothing supernatural anywhere on this plane. That which today seems supernatural, then after it's understood, is found to be, spontaneously natural. It's something that just works all the time. We say that there is a universal mind, but no one has ever seen it. We say that God is spirit, but no one has seen God. The Bible says, no man has seen God at this time, only the Son that he had revealed him, which is this teacher Jesus. To express this idea in our language, no one has seen cause, the cause of everything that happens in our life. Because we see an effect of it, then we must know there's a cause. When we see the effect in our life, we know there's a cause. What is it? Nothing is more evident than the fact that we live, and since we live, there must be life. The only proof that we have of our mind is that we think, and we know that we think. The eternal principle behind it is forever hidden. So I think that's enough for today, and we'll do part 2 next Sunday. What?